In the dim glow of the late afternoon sun, Sarah stood near the back exit of the small cafe she had frequented for years. The familiar scent of roasted coffee beans filled the air, but today it felt different. Today there was a weight hanging in the atmosphere, an unshakable tension that gripped her chest tightly. She glanced over her shoulder at the other patrons, their faces blurred by her own racing thoughts. Sarah's heart raced as she turned to the exit. Just a few minutes ago, when she was sitting at her usual table with a steaming cup of chai tea, she received a message that changed everything. The text was plain and simple but sent waves of fear through her. "Meet me at the back exit." It was from Jason, her closest friend since childhood, but today this message felt like a warning. She didn't know what was coming, but she could sense it would alter her life in ways she couldn't yet imagine. As she stood there, lost in her mind, a familiar figure approached, the one she had hoped to see. Jason walked towards her, his face grim, the usual spark in his blue eyes replaced by worry. Sarah felt her entire body tense as he stepped closer, glancing around as if he was checking for unseen threats. "Sarah, thank God you're here," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The urgency in his tone made her stomach drop. She nodded, stepping aside to let him through the door to the alley behind the cafe. The air turned cooler outside, tinged with the scent of wet pavement from the rain earlier that morning. Jason led her further down the narrow passage, where the noise of the cafe faded away, leaving only the low hum of distant traffic. She asked, her voice steady despite the growing unease. He ran a hand through his messy hair, his eyes darting around as if the shadows themselves might reveal hidden dangers. "I can't explain everything right now, but you need to listen to me. I found out something dangerous." Feeling her heart thumping loudly in her ears, Sarah tried to focus on his words. "Jason, what do you mean I'm in it?" He glanced behind him again, stepping closer to her. "There's no time, just trust me." "Safe," her brows knitted in confusion. Wasn't Jason. The man standing in front of her was not the jokester who would often lighten her toughest days with a quick laugh. This was a man tangled in fear. Before he could answer, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Startled, Sarah pulled it out, her eyes flickering to the screen. It was a message from an unknown number. "Follow the instructions, move quickly." Panic surged through her veins. How can they say that? Her mind raced, conflicting feelings fighting for control. She had known Jason her entire life. Or let her down, she whispered, voicing the question that clawed at her. Jason's face paled. What's happening?" "Someone I don't know," she replied, shaking slightly. They said you can't be trusted." His eyes grew wide, disbelief washing over his features. "That's impossible." Sarah challenged, feeling a surge of defiance. He pleaded, stepping closer. "Those messages could be a trick. You need to." But before he could finish, Sarah's phone rang, the screen lighting up with the same unknown number. Even as the phone vibrated in her hand, she hesitated. Deep down, she felt drawn to answer it, almost like the call was a lifeline. She asked, glancing between Jason and the phone. The entire situation felt like a nightmare slowly unspooling. He shouted, panic slipping into his voice, "Please just trust me." But that fear was at odds with her gut feeling. Something was wrong, true, but it didn't mean Jason was the enemy. Her hands trembled as she pressed the green button. She held the phone to her ear. Sarah said, her voice shaky. There was a pause on the other end, a heartbeat of silence that echoed loudly in her mind. Then came the voice, low and calm, almost soothing. "Sarah, you don't know me, but I have crucial information. You're in danger." She shot back, her defiance masking how vulnerable she felt. "Because Jason isn't who you think he is. You need to get away from him." Her heart sank. Jason's face twisted with worry, desperation etched in every feature. "Sarah, please." The dissonance of Jason's plea and the caller's calm tone made her swing like a pendulum, caught in a dangerous tug-of-war. She felt trapped between the two worlds, the one she knew, filled with trust and friendship, and this new, terrifying reality that whispered of betrayal. "I need to think," she murmured, her voice softer now, the fight slipping away. "Do not take too long, you must leave immediately," the voice warned before the line went dead. Sarah took a shaky breath, the air thick with uncertainty. She turned to Jason, who looked scared, vulnerable, but still steadfast. "Is it true?" His eyes widened, and for a brief moment he looked lost. "No, Sarah, I would never hide anything from you, I promise. This is bigger than us." But doubt crept into her heart. Could she trust him? She knew secrets could twist relationships, but this felt like the ultimate betrayal, like the world beneath her feet was crumbling. She took a step back, grappling with the intense emotions battling inside her. I don't know," she whispered, anger and sadness coursing through her veins. Jason reached out, desperation in his voice. "Whatever they said, it's a lie. I would never hurt you. We've been through so much together." Suddenly, memories flooded back, laughter, shared secrets, the unbreakable bond that felt like it could conquer anything. The trust they had built over years clung to her like an old, soft blanket. But was it enough? Was this just another game, or was it the moment where trust would break? She shook her head slowly. "Because someone is trying to play with your emotions," he replied urgently. "Please, Sarah, we have to go." As fear gnawed at her resolve, she took a deep breath, trying to drown out the chaos swirling in her mind. She watched Jason closely, searching for the truth in his expression. Could she really believe him, or was this all a ruse? Her phone buzzed again, another message blinking in the fading light. The thrill of anticipation twisted through her. In that moment, the choice felt overwhelming, like she held the key to a door she couldn't quite see. "Fine," she finally said, her voice steadying. "You won't be," Jason interrupted, his eyes shining with conviction. She took a step towards him, allowing her instincts to guide her. In this world of shadows and uncertainty, it felt better to lean on someone rather than face the storm alone. As they turned to leave, her phone rang again, cutting through the tension like a knife. She felt her heart leap, the words from the unknown voice beckoning her to answer once more. But this time she was determined to move forward. "Not now," she whispered, letting the call fade away. Instead, she stepped towards Jason, her trust slowly mending the cracks in their friendship. They were part of a story larger than themselves, a story she felt she had to face with him by her side. Together, they stepped beyond the cafe's shadow, into the unpredictable world of unknown dangers and unresolved truths. Whatever lay ahead, she knew she had to face it, if only to find out who she really could trust and discover what was worth fighting for in her life. "Go," she shouted, her breath catching in her throat as she pointed toward the back exit of the bustling cafe. The air buzzed with conversation, laughter intersecting with the smell of fresh pastries, but Sarah's heart raced far beyond the chaos inside. She knew they had to move quickly, her instincts clawing at her. Jason's eyes widened, his hand hesitating over the table as he processed her panic. He asked, confusion and concern flashing across his face. "Please, just trust me." The urgency in her voice melted away his hesitation. He rose from his seat, glancing around, looking for threats that might lurk among the crowd. Sarah didn't wait, she turned and sprinted toward the back door. The cafe seemed to recede behind them, a world that grew smaller with every hurried step. Outside, the alley was stark and quiet, a stark contrast to the warm, inviting space they had just left. The sun hung low, casting long shadows, and with the fading light, the gravity of their situation settled heavily upon her. He panted, catching up to her. "Because I just got a text," she replied, pulling out her phone with shaky hands. The message flashed ominously on the screen. Watched, the fear in Jason's voice was palpable. This wasn't the playful banter they'd had just moments ago. Sarah felt the pulse of adrenaline kick in, her mind racing. Her fingers trembled as she navigated the notifications, her heart sinking as the reality of their predicament crashed over her. This was no longer a simple outing, but a life-or-death situation. Jason looked between her and the narrow alley that stretched ahead. She cut him off, the words spilling out with an urgency that fueled her next decision. "Trust me, we're not safe here." He swallowed hard, his expression shifting from uncertainty to determination. "Okay, let's go." Before Sarah could reply, her phone rang, the sound slicing through the thickening tension like a knife. Jason flinched. He asked, his voice tight, "I don't know." She exclaimed, staring at the screen. The world around them seemed to freeze. In slow motion, she lifted the phone to her ear, curiosity intertwining with dread. The voice on the other end was calm, almost too calm. She demanded, pressing her back against the cold brick wall of the alley, her heart pounding. "Listen closely, there isn't much time." An icy shiver coursed down her spine. She could hear the faint crackling of static. "What are you talking about?" But there was no reply. A silence heavy with anxiety settled as she glanced at Jason. He looked pale, eyes darting around as if he could peel back the shadows to reveal the truth. He whispered harshly, looking more terrified than she'd ever seen him. The voice snapped back through the line, sharper than before. "He's dangerous." A whirlwind of emotions swirled inside her. How could she believe this stranger? Jason was her best friend. She shifted her gaze to him, seeking reassurance, but all she saw was uncertainty mirrored in his expression. Jason pleaded, but doubt creeped back, weaving through her mind. The unknown voice had pulled the rug out from underneath her, and she struggled to regain her footing. She hissed, her phone still pressed to her ear. "Because I don't have time to explain everything," the voice insisted, urgency spilling into their conversation. "Just know that he's not safe," she asked, her heart racing wildly. "Turn around, take the escape route behind the cafe, follow the path leading down to the park." She shot back, her indignation flaring. Jason's eyes widened as the words sank in. He exclaimed, but there was a spark inside her now, lighting the path forward. Sarah felt this strange mix of fear and daring. She grabbed Jason's arm, her grip like iron. "Come on," he shook his head furiously. "No, Sarah, this is madness." She held his gaze, letting the tension fill the gaps between them. "It may be madness, but it's our only chance." The silence was electric, boiling with uncertainty. Jason stood frozen, doubt etched in the lines of his face. But as she pulled him toward the path, his instincts kicked in and he followed, even as terror lurked in his eyes. Turning down the narrow alley, they began to run. The sound of their footsteps pattered against the concrete, echoing against the walls. Panic surged as they left the safety of the cafe behind, some invisible chains breaking with every stride they took. He gasped, struggling to keep pace. She shot back, determination stealing her resolve. The park loomed ahead, a curtain of trees against the colorful sky. The shadows stretched long, weaving a web of uncertainty, but they ran toward it, hearts pounding like war drums. If Jason was hiding something, if this was some kind of elaborate trick, they would find out soon enough. Sarah pointed as the trees parted to reveal a secluded path. Hope bloomed inside her as they slipped into the grove, the foliage embracing them like a protective shield. Jason murmured, a mixture of disbelief and exhilaration flaring in his voice. "Right now, we're surviving," she replied, adrenaline propelling her forward. They dashed deeper into the park, the sound of their breaths mingling with the rustling leaves above. Everything felt alive, charge and energy electric in the air. For a fleeting moment they laughed, exhilaration lifting the heaviness from their hearts, but that didn't last long. The reality of their escape threaded through the trees, the hidden danger creeping closer. Sarah pressed ahead, her mind racing through the possible outcomes. Should she trust the voice on the phone? What if they were being led into a trap? Suddenly her phone buzzed again, the vibrations stark against her racing heart. She skidded to a halt and glanced at the screen. The unknown number blinked relentlessly, as if beckoning her to answer. She hissed, staring at it like it was a snake ready to strike. Jason caught up, breathless. She snapped back, he urged, his eyes darting toward the path behind them. She felt the weight of the decision push against her. She didn't want to run blindly, she wanted answers, but with every second that ticked away, she felt the threat growing. Jason begged, desperation inching into his voice. With trembling fingers, she answered the call, raising the phone to her ear. She asked, the tone of her voice sharpened with resolve. "Head to the point where the trees form a circle." Sarah's resolve collided with confusion. "Just follow the direction, I can help you both." The voice was steady, strong, cutting through the haze of doubt swirling in her mind. Her heart raced again as she stole a glance at Jason. The room of uncertainty quickly took shape. "You have to trust me," Jason exclaimed, but desperation flashed across his face. In that moment, a surge of clarity washed over her. "I need to trust my gut," she whispered, almost to herself. Without another word, Sarah darted toward the center of the grove, her heart racing with each step. The trees formed an almost mystical circle, their branches swaying in the wind, whispering secrets she couldn't quite decipher. Jason hesitated, frustration boiling beneath the surface. He yelled, a mix of anger and confusion boiling in his tone. She paused for an instant, uncertainty flickering in her chest, but she pressed on. She snapped back, desperation weeding out the fear. Then it hit her, the memories they had shared, the loyalty they had promised each other, all shadowed by the unknown that loomed. The thought of Jason betraying her didn't seem plausible, but doubt had crept in uninvited. Behind her, she heard his footsteps resume, hurried and frantic. She declared, summoning courage, "I'm done asking questions." Suddenly, the lush foliage parted, revealing a figure standing at the edge of the grove, silhouetted against the setting sun. The mystery loomed large as fear gripped her heart again. The figure stepped forward, their features hidden but their demeanor unmistakably confident. The voice greeted, low and steady, "You made it." Jason caught up, panting, his expression a blend of confusion and concern. He demanded, stepping between her and the stranger. The stranger's eyes settled on her, searching for something beneath the surface. "You're safe now." Sarah felt the weight of his gaze, a mixture of authority and understanding. She asked, meeting his stare. The decision to trust was not easy to make, but she felt hope begin to seep back in. "Certain people are watching you, Sarah. You've stumbled into a dangerous game," he explained, his voice strong. "But you're not alone." Her heart raced at the thought. "Escape what?" "They believe you possess something vital," he continued, not breaking eye contact. Jason shifted uneasily beside her, his fingers twitching. He looked at her, a silent plea coursing through him. She exclaimed, urgency rolling through her veins. "Because you're a pawn in a game bigger than either of us," the stranger replied, cryptic yet clear. "You have a choice to make." As those words landed, Sarah's heart quickened. It felt like a moment suspended in time. The truth loomed close, ready to unfold in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The stranger asked, extending a hand toward her. The choice was before her, heavy with uncertainty and possibility. In that instant, Sarah felt the weight of trust, friendship, and danger swirl around her, all colliding into what would become an unforgettable chapter of her life. "Let's do this," she finally said, summoning her courage. Jason's face went pale as she stepped forward, but she held her ground. If they were to step ahead, it would be together, no matter the shadow that loomed behind. In this uncharted territory where danger danced with uncertainty, she was ready to forge her path. With every heartbeat, she felt alive, on the edge of something that could change everything. Whatever lay ahead, she would not face it alone. Together, they would unravel the truth and fight against the darkness lurking just beyond the light. "Go," Sarah shouted, her heart pounding like a drum as she pointed toward the back exit of the busy cafe. With the chatter of coffee drinkers surrounding them, she felt tension coil in her stomach like a tightly wound spring. Jason, her best friend since childhood, looked bewildered, glancing from her to the crowded cafe. "What's happening?" His eyes were wide, confusion etched onto his face. "Just trust me." She felt the rush of adrenaline surge through her. There was no time for explanations. Something was coming, and they couldn't afford to wait. They slipped through the cafe door into the narrow alley, the air instantly cooler and thick with apprehension. The world outside felt alive, buzzing with an energy that collided with the panic swirling in her chest. She could hear their laughter and clinking dishes fading away behind them, but it didn't bring her any comfort. Jason's breath came in quick bursts beside her. What are we running from, Sarah? He was trying to piece together the chaos, the unexpected turns this day had taken. She stuttered, pulling out her phone. The screen lit up with a message that made her stomach drop. I just got a text. Watched. His voice was thick with disbelief and fear, mirroring the turmoil churning inside her. I don't know. Panic clawed at her throat. The weight of uncertainty was almost unbearable. She felt like she was standing on a cliff, teetering over an abyss of unknown threats. She began walking, urging Jason to follow, her instincts screaming for them to find safety. The cafe felt like a distant memory, and the alleyway loomed before them, dark and foreboding. Just as they reached the end of the alley, her phone buzzed again, this time ringing. She hesitated, glancing at Jason. The unknown number lit up the screen, and a chill ran down her spine. She asked, her voice tense. Yes, Jason urged, his anxiety contagious. With hesitant fingers, she swiped to answer. Sarah, a low voice echoed through the receiver comm, but unsettling. You need to listen to me. Her heart dropped. She stammered, looking at Jason, who had gone pale. The world spun around her. Just follow my instructions, the voice continued, and you'll be safe. What? I can't just, she began, but a sharp breath from Jason cut her off. Sarah, Jason's voice was a frantic plea, his eyes wide and desperate. Everything inside her screamed to believe Jason, yet the disembodied voice echoed ominously in her mind. She asked, her heart racing. It felt surreal, like a scene pulled straight from a movie. Follow the path that leads to the park. The line went dead. The silence that followed was suffocating. She felt as if the air had been sucked out of the world. She whispered, looking back at Jason. He was completely still, a mix of fear and determination in his eyes. Sarah, this is nuts. His voice was urgent, almost frantic. The tension between them snapped like a taut wire, and in that moment Sarah felt the ground shifting beneath her. She challenged, her voice rising. Because I'm your friend, Jason replied, taking a step closer, his hands outstretched as if to pull her back from an unseen edge. She argued, feeling a deep chasm opening between her trust in him and her sense of self-preservation. Jason's voice trembled, shadows of doubt creeping into his eyes. We've been through everything together. As moments dragged on, indecision clawed at her mind. Trust was the foundation of their friendship, but doubt and fear loomed like thunderclouds above them. She glanced again at her phone, the silence heavy with expectation. Then she felt it, a pulse of clarity cutting through the chaos. We need to go, she said firmly, determination washing over her. Jason's face fell as he stumbled back, caught off guard. He exclaimed, but it was the choice she had to make. You can come with me or you can stay. She turned on her heel, running toward the park, her heart pounding with every step. He called after her, his voice pleading, but she didn't stop. The path stretched before her, lined with trees standing like sentinels, shadows dancing as the sun dipped lower in the sky. It felt surreal, the world morphing around her as adrenaline coursed through her veins. What if Jason was dangerous? What if she was walking right into a trap? But she felt her instincts guiding her, pushing her toward safety, somewhere far away from uncertainty. She reached the park, heart racing, the shadows deepening around her. The air was thick and quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos she had just fled. Taking a deep breath, she scanned the area, searching for anyone waiting for her. She thought, her mind racing. Anxiety clawed at her stomach as she stuck her phone back in her pocket. What if they were right? What if she was making a huge mistake? As she stepped further into the park, she caught sight of a figure emerging from behind a nearby tree tall, with a confident stride. The stranger seemed out of place, standing just outside where the sunlight blazed through the leaves. The voice called again, low and assertive, echoing as if it knew her name all too well. She shouted back, her voice steady though the uncertainty bubbled underneath the surface. I'm your ally, the figure replied, stepping closer until sunlight caught their feature-sharp jawline, piercing eyes that glinted with resolve. But time is short. She felt her heart race faster, confusion threatening to drown her. It was all too fast. Questions circled in her mind like vultures. Follow me, the stranger urged. She hesitated, her eyes darting around, waiting for Jason to appear. She demanded, instinctively stepping back. I can't explain everything now, they said, frustration edging their voice. But Jason isn't worth the risk. Desperation swelled in her chest, a mixture of fear and urge to protect herself. What's going on? The figure sighed, their resolve shimmering like heat waves in the sun. He's mixed up in something dangerous. It's bigger than you, bigger than both of you. Right now, you're in a game you don't even comprehend. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes, her vision blurred as she fought to grasp the situation. This felt like the plot of a thriller, a nightmare woven from threads of intrigue and betrayal, but right now she didn't know where to turn. Please, she whispered, the rawness of her desperation pouring out. Meet me at the old fountain in 10 minutes, the stranger instructed, glancing around nervously. Trust no one but yourself. Panic surged again as they turned to disappear into the trees. She shouted, but it was too late. The figure vanished like a fleeting shadow among the leaves. She stood there, the weight of solitude crashing down upon her. Doubt and confusion swirled like autumn leaves in the wind. Should she go back? What if she left Jason to danger? But the voice had been so sure. She thought, wrestling with guilt and fear. Her heart was torn, every fiber in her being screaming for clarity. Taking a deep breath, she paced back and forth, mulling over her choices. The reality was settling like fog, thick and dense around her mind. Jason felt like safety one moment, and the next, he turned into an enigma filled with threats. The old fountain, she recalled its rough stone edges and soft trickling sound from childhood memories. It felt like a symbol of choice, of paths diverging. Finally, striking a deep resolve within, she decided to trust her gut. Uncertainty tightened like a noose around her heart, but something told her she had to learn the truth before stepping back into the storm. As she made her way toward the fountain, determination coursed through her veins. The sun dipped lower, sending shadows stretching across the ground, becoming ominous in their silent watch over her. Rounding the corner, she spotted the fountain ahead, the water cascading gently, glimmering in the soft evening light. She felt a sense of calm wash over her, the peaceful ambience providing a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her. But she wasn't alone. Jason appeared from behind a nearby tree, his expression a mix of relief and worry. Sarah. Her heart leaped, fear flooding in again. What's happening, Jason? I need the truth. He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. I was trying to protect you, I promise. But what about the call? The voice said you were. I'm not your enemy. His voice trembled, his expression pained. For a moment, time stood still. Each breath felt monumental as she weighed her options. Could she dismiss everything swirling around her? Was it possible that he was telling the truth? But then the figure emerged from the shadows, glancing at Jason with narrowed eyes. You shouldn't be here, they warned, voice cold as ice. Jason demanded, stepping protectively in front of Sarah. Someone like an uninvited storm, the stranger was fierce yet commanding. This is your last chance, Sarah, she repeated, bewildered. Jason's in too deep. They've been tracking you both. They'll stop at nothing to use you as a pawn, the figure pressed on. The choices lay heavy before her, twisted and knotted like branches of a tree. But the truth was starting to unfurl, revealing shadowy outlines of reality. She felt the gravity of her decision weigh on her shoulders. Sarah, please, Jason's voice trembled, eyes wide with sincerity. The weight of trust hung in the air, as palpable as the fading sunlight, but within her core something shifted. She knew she had to untangle herself from the confusion. I don't know who to believe, she finally said, her voice trembling. The stranger urged, stepping forward, this is your life, your choice. And in that moment of clarity, she felt a flicker of determination ignite within. She had known Jason for as long as she could remember, but this was no longer just about him. It was about her life, her future. I'm choosing my path, she declared, her voice resolute. Jason's face fell, the fear in his eyes mingling with disbelief. She shouted, eyes locked on Jason, I'm done clinging to the past. And with that, she turned to walk toward the stranger, toward the uncertainty of the unknown, embracing the decision she had made. In that moment, she felt a sense of freedom coursing through her veins, a choice that would shape her destiny. She would face whatever darkness lay ahead, armed with the truth and the strength to forge a new path. As the shadows closed in behind her, she took a deep breath, ready to embrace the journey ahead, unafraid, unwavering, and undeniably herself. Together with the stranger, she stepped forward, leaving the past behind and walking boldly into the unknown. Go. Sarah's voice trembled, the urgency burning in her chest as she shoved Jason toward the back exit of the cafe. The bustling room was alive with chatter and laughter, but to her, the walls felt like they were closing in. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and she knew it. Jason hesitated, his brow furrowed in confusion. Where? His voice wavered, caught between disbelief and the mounting tension in the air. She cast a glance over her shoulder, her gut twisting with dread. Without waiting for another word, she turned and dashed through the narrow corridor leading to the back, wooden floorboards creaking beneath their hurried steps. As they slipped outside, the world transformed into a stark contrast, a dim alley illuminated by neon sunlight flickering from the cafe's sign. Jason gasped, trying to catch his breath, the smell of fresh coffee mixed with anxiety, filling the air and making everything feel surreal. I just got a text. Her heart raced even faster than her legs as she pulled out her phone, her hands shaking slightly. Watch. His voice held a hint of panic, eyes darting, scanning the alley for threats she couldn't see. The fear wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket, squeezing the air from her lungs. Just as they reached the end of the alley, her phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with an unknown number. Panic surged through her as she answered it instinctively, almost like her body was moving on its own. She said, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah, a smooth, calm voice responded on the other end. Listen carefully, you need to trust me. Her heart dropped. She glanced at Jason, whose face was now as pale as the concrete beneath their feet. Don't turn around. If you listen to me, I can keep you safe, the voice continued, an edge of urgency creeping into its tone. She shot back, her mind racing. What was happening? The voice was steady, a quiet assurance that pulled at her instincts. Go to the park, I'll explain everything. Jason exploded, panic slicing through his voice. Don't listen to him. The tension thickened, a taut string ready to snap. Sarah glanced between her best friend and the phone, the decision weighing heavy on her shoulders. Was Jason really a threat? They had grown up together, shared secrets, laughter, heartaches. Could he possibly be hiding something? Sarah, please. Jason's tone shifted into desperation, his hands reaching out as if to pull her back from the brink. Follow my instructions, Sarah, the voice urged again, cutting through the chaos in her mind. She whispered into the phone, her heart racing. Everything you need to know, the voice replied, just trust me. The silence seemed louder as she tried to piece together her options. Jason looked terrified, sweat beading on his brow. Should she trust the stranger's voice or the friend who had stood by her side for years? Each moment stretched into eternity, uncertainty knotting in her stomach. The voice insisted, breaking the tension. With her heart racing, Sarah made her decision. I can't stay here, she said, her voice firm. Before Jason could protest again, she turned on her heel and sprinted toward the park. The grass felt cool beneath her feet as she dashed away, adrenaline pushing her forward. What was chasing them? Who was this mysterious voice? Jason yelled, but she didn't look back. She couldn't. The need to escape was paramount. As she broke through the trees lining the park, she spotted an old, twisted oak tree in the distance, the one where they used to play as kids. It felt like a beacon calling her back to safety. Please, Sarah. Jason's voice was now more distant, filled with panic. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting long shadows that danced along the ground as she made her way to the tree. She felt like she was in a movie, each step laced with tension and uncertainty. The anticipation hung thick in the air, charged with danger. She didn't stop running until she reached that old oak. The cool shade enveloped her and she could finally breathe, though it felt as if something unseen was still lingering just beyond the edge of her vision. Jason's voice broke through the quiet and she turned to see him running toward her, worry etched on his face. She replied, her voice trembling. He insisted, frustration spilling over. This is all part of their game. She shot back, her heart racing as she felt the weight of the moment pressing down like a physical force. Just then her phone buzzed again and she pulled it out almost instinctively. Another message appeared from the same unknown number. The fountain, go there now. I need to go, she said, glancing at Jason. He reached for her, his grasp desperate. You can't just leave me here, I won't let you, she challenged, her heart pounding in her chest. What if you're the one who's lying? Jason's eyes flared with hurt, and for a moment Sarah saw how much this was affecting him. You know me, his voice cracked, and she felt the pull of their shared history weighing in the air between them. Yet the stillness of the park felt menacing, shadows creeping closer like they were alive. She had to choose where to place her trust, and the risk felt too great to ignore. I'm going to find out the truth, she said firmly, pain lacing her voice. If you want to come with me, you can. With a heavy heart, she turned and began walking toward the fountain that glistened in the sunlight, calling out to her like a siren's song. He shouted, fear etched in every syllable. But with every step, she felt a surge of determination, even as doubt gnawed at her mind. She had seen too many movies where the protagonist trusted the wrong person, and this felt like one of those moments, like a pivotal scene teetering on a knife's edge. The pathway led her deeper into the park, sunlight flickering through the trees above. Each step echoed with uncertainty, each rustle in the underbrush sounding like impending doom. She kept her grip on her phone tight, ready for whatever came next. As she arrived at the old fountain, her heart raced. The stone was cracked and weathered, water bubbling softly as it cascaded into the basin below. It felt eerily calm, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in her mind. A voice cried out from the shadows and her pulse quickened. The figure stepped forward, their features obscured in the fading light. You came, they said, their voice calm yet commanding. Sarah demanded, stomach twisting in knots. I'm the one who called you, they replied, eyes fixed on hers with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. She asked, feeling a mixture of fear and curiosity blooming within. You're caught in a web of deception, the figure explained. No, she said, shaking her head. He's my friend. He would never. He's in too deep. The figure interrupted gently, their tone softening. They've pulled him into something much larger than either of you understand. She shot back, frustration simmering beneath her skin. Because I'm here to help you, the figure implored. Jason cannot protect you. Her heart raced, torn between years of friendship and the foreboding words of the stranger. What do you know about him? He's being monitored. The figure stepped closer, urgency in their voice growing. If you stay, you'll be caught in the crossfire. Panic surged, her heart pounding like a wild drum in her chest. Stop saying these things. Sometimes the hardest choices are the ones we have to make, the figure said softly, a hint of empathy in their eyes. In that moment, Sarah felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. All her memories with Jason flashed before her eyes, his laughter, their late-night talks, the adventures they had shared. But with that warmth also came confusion, shadows of doubt creeping in. Choose wisely, the figure added, backing away slowly, trailing their fingers along the fountain's stone edge. Breath hitching in her throat, she glanced back in the direction Jason had gone. Was he really the person she thought he was? Did she have the strength to sever the bond that had meant everything for so long? Or could she trust this stranger who spoke of betrayal? Jason's voice echoed through the trees, filled with both fear and determination. You don't know what's happening. Every heartbeat felt like a drum roll of destiny. She closed her eyes for a moment, weighing the evidence. In her gut, she felt something pivotal was at stake, her life, her freedom. "I can't go back," she whispered, the words barely breaking the surface. For the first time, she recognized what she truly wanted. She wanted truth. She wanted freedom from deception. She wanted to stand tall, unafraid of the secrets lurking in shadows. "I'm leaving," she declared with newfound resolve. As she stepped forward, she knew this was a turning point. She had to trust herself despite the overwhelming uncertainty. "Wait," Jason's voice pleaded, urgency swelling within the trees, but she held her ground. "I have to find my own way," she replied, her voice steady. With that, she turned away from the fountain, the breeze carrying her forward into the unknown. Whatever lay ahead would be hers to navigate on her terms. And as she stepped into the heart of the park, the shadows began to lift. Freedom was a choice she made for herself, a journey she was ready to embrace. No longer in the confines of fear, she carried the light of her own courage, ready to face everything that the world had to offer, bold, unyielding, and undeniably herself. "Go," Sarah's voice rang out sharp and clear, cutting through the noise of the bustling cafe. The warmth of roasted coffee beans and the chatter of customers filled the air, but underneath it all, a tension hung heavy, palpable enough to make her skin prickle. She pointed urgently toward the back exit as she locked eyes with Jason, her best friend, who stood frozen, confusion clouding his expression. He asked, his brow furrowed. A sense of urgency flooded her heart, pushing her forward. She had to act now, no time for doubts or second thoughts. Panic simmered beneath the surface. Something wasn't right, and she could feel it deep in her bones. With a quick glance over her shoulder, she turned and sprinted toward the back door, Jason finally following her. The familiar cafe faded behind them as they pushed through the heavy door and into the cool, dark alley. The thrill of adrenaline coursed through her, mingling with the fear that twisted in her stomach. Jason breathed, trying to catch his breath as they lined against the brick wall. "I just got a text," Sarah said, pulling her phone from her pocket, her fingers trembling slightly. "Watched," his voice wavered under the weight of confusion and fear. "I don't know, but I felt it," she replied, glancing around the narrow alley, her heartbeat pounding loudly in her ears. The shadows seemed to creep closer as if the walls had ears. Before Jason could respond, her phone buzzed violently in her hand, the shock of it jolting her from her thoughts. She looked down to see an unknown number flashing on the screen, and dread washed over her. "It's a call from an unknown number," she whispered, her voice trembling. He urged, his eyes wide with urgency. Taking a deep breath, she swiped to answer. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. The voice on the other end was low and steady. "You need to trust me." Every muscle in her body tensed at the words. Her gaze flicked to Jason, who looked pale, confusion quickly morphing into fear. "Listen carefully," the voice continued. "Something is going to happen if you don't leave right now." Panic clawed at her throat, her heart racing as Jason looked at her, desperation etched into his features. "Because they are coming for you. Jason is involved," the voice said, firm and insistent. "Follow my instructions and you'll be safe." Sarah cried, her heart thudding like an ominous drum. "Who are you?" "Because Jason is a danger to you," the voice said, every word a chilling warning. "You must decide, stay with him or escape." The line went dead, leaving her in a suffocating silence. She stared at her phone, breathless, as the weight of the conversation sank in. Blood pounded in her ears, drowning out the world around her. Jason's voice pierced through her haze. She turned to him, uncertainty flooding her senses. "That's crazy." His eyes were wide with a mix of fear and anger. "I'm your best friend." In that moment, Rachel felt the fence between trust and suspicion grow razor thin. Panic surged in her chest, twisting her gut. "Nothing, I swear," he urged, desperation edging his voice. Every moment stretched into eternity as she wrestled with her thoughts. As the calm of the alley dulled her fear, the truth became a battleground in her mind. The voice, so steady and sure, contrasted with Jason's frantic assurances. Suddenly, the alley felt like a trap, and she was standing in the middle of it, held captive by her own indecision. "I have to go," she said, the words spilling out before she fully grasped their weight. "Don't." Jason's voice cracked, and she felt a pang of guilt gnawing at her heart. "I have to find out the truth," she replied firmly, the decision hardening inside her. With a deep breath, she turned on her heel and ran toward the park. Thought of leaving Jason behind felt like a knife twisting in her gut, but her instincts screamed for her to escape, to discover what awaited her in the unknown. "Sarah," his voice faded behind her, laced with both fear and disbelief. The park loomed ahead, a dense thicket of trees and shadows framed against the evening sky. The air, thick with tension, seemed to throb with each of her steps. She could see the old fountain peeking through the branches, a landmark from her childhood, almost beckoning her forward. Reaching the entrance of the park, she sprinted down the path, the cool breeze mingling with her frantic heartbeat. Her eyes darted around, trying to discern shapes from shadows. As she approached the fountain, memories washed over her, all the days spent laughing, playing, and dreaming beneath its gentle spout of water. But the echoes of the past quickly faded away. Today felt icy, filled with an invisible threat. She called, her voice trembling. Silence wrapped around her like a cloak, but then she saw a figure emerge from the trees. A person stood quietly, their features softened by the shadows, but their presence undeniably strong. "Sarah," the figure said with an air of calm confidence. She demanded, every fiber of her being poised for a fight. "I'm here to help you," they said, stepping closer, a warmth in their tone that made her hesitate. She pressed, fear clawing at her insides. "What about Jason?" "Jason is not to be trusted," the figure replied, their eyes steady on her. "He's been manipulated, caught in a web he didn't weave." Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. "It's a dangerous game that goes far beyond you two. You are the target. He's been put in place to watch over you, to report back," she asked, taking a small step back. "Because I've seen what they can do," the figure said, their voice low and intense. "I've witnessed their manipulations, their whispers." A storm was brewing inside her, a tempest of doubt battling against the honesty she sensed in the unknown figure. Ice coiled in her veins as she considered what they were saying. Could she really believe this stranger over Jason? The figure's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. "You need to make a choice," she repeated, feeling the weight of their words. "Sometimes the loss of the old is necessary for the birth of something new," they replied, their eyes piercing through the shadows. Just then the sound of footsteps approached, the familiar cadence breaking the moment. Sarah's heart turned into a drum roll, each beat louder than the last. "Sarah," Jason's voice cut through the tension like glass shattering. Panic surged in her chest. "I can't go back to him," she thought, her heart racing as she weighed her options. The figure urged, stepping away as if understanding the gravity of the moment, and then it hit her. This was a crossroads, not just with Jason, but with her own destiny. If she turned back now, would she stay caught in the web, or was it better to step into the light of the unknown and face whatever challenges awaited her? Jason's voice grew closer, filled with a mix of desperation and anger. The stranger urged, their own gaze darting toward the approaching footsteps. With a deep breath, she looked deep inside herself, wrapping her arms around the need for truth and freedom. It felt like a moment suspended in time, shadows swirling around her. "I choose to break free," she declared firmly, turning to face Jason's voice. "Sarah, please," he began, but she interrupted him. "I can't do this anymore." Her voice rang out, strong and unyielding. The storm clouds of doubt began to dissipate as she turned toward the stranger, feeling the spark of hope igniting in her chest. Their eyes widened with approval. "Good choice," they said, a soft smile breaking their serious facade. With one last look over her shoulder, she stepped into the unknown, a thrill of fear and exhilaration coursing through her veins. She was breaking the chains of the past, ready to forge her destiny. As she walked away, Jason's voice rang behind her, filled with anguish. But she didn't look back. She kept her eyes forward, sealed with her decision, knowing this was just the beginning of a journey that belonged solely to her. In that sacred moment, she transformed. She was no longer just Sarah, she became a warrior of her own fate. The path ahead was uncertain, but she had chosen to embrace it, armed with the truth and a resolve that burned brightly against the darkness. The world around her shifted as she stepped into her new life, bold, unafraid, and fiercely alive. "Go." Sarah's voice sliced through the noise of the bustling cafe, her heart racing as she pointed Jason toward the back exit. The warmth and chatter inside felt like a distant memory, an illusion shattered by the urgency that filled the air. She felt a gut instinct scream that something was terribly wrong. "What?" Jason blinked in confusion, his expression etched with concern. Panic edged her voice as she shot a quick glance over her shoulder. The cafe felt too small, its walls closing in around them. Without waiting for another word, she turned and dashed toward the back door, the familiar scent of coffee and pastries fading behind her. Jason followed, his breath quickening as they burst into the cool, shadowy alleyway. The sudden quiet outside contrasted starkly with the chaos they left behind. Jason asked, leaning against the brick wall, trying to catch his breath. "I don't know," she panted. Watched, anxiety licked at the edges of his voice. "I don't know," the urgency spiked in her chest. Every instinct told her to run. Before he could respond, her phone buzzed violently against her palm. She fumbled to answer it, her heart racing. An unknown number blinked on the screen, something inside her twisted at the sight. She said, her voice trembling, "Sarah, listen to me." The voice on the other end was low and steady. "You need to go now." A chill ran down her spine, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. "Just get to the park," the voice continued, cutting through her racing thoughts. "Don't trust Jason." Sarah's heart raced even more. The man standing next to her just looked confused, desperation flooding his features. "Because you don't have time," the voice was urgent, almost panicked. As the line went dead, the weight of the conversation settled over her like a heavy fog. Jason pressed, his expression growing frantic. The words tumbled out, a mixture of fear and shock rushing through her. "Sarah, that's insane, you know me." His voice cracked as he struggled to convey his sincerity. She struggled to process it all. Her heart raced as she glanced at her phone again, feeling the weight of her decision crush down on her. Agent of chaos or friend, Jason insisted, his eyes darting around, searching for something Sarah couldn't see. But the weight of doubt gnawed at her, twisting inside like a storm. Trust and affection battled against the backdrop of fear. She asked, her voice wavering, "Would I ever betray you?" He stepped closer, desperation flooding his tone. But in that moment, Sarah felt suspended between two worlds. One was filled with the certainty of her bond with Jason, and the other was shrouded in uncertainty, illuminated by the mysterious voice. With a deep breath, she made her choice. Jason grabbed her arm, his fingers wrapping around her wrist as if trying to anchor her to the moment. "I have to find out what's happening." Her voice was steady, a determination rising within her. Without a second thought, she tore herself away from him and sprinted toward the park, her heart pounding with every step. Jason's voice echoed behind her, filled with desperation and betrayal, but she pushed the fear aside and focused on the path ahead. The park's entrance came into view, trees rising like sentinels along the path, their leaves whispering secrets. As she entered the park, each footfall echoed her resolve, painting a stark contrast against the chaos of the cafe behind her. "Sarah," Jason's voice called out, panic threading through his tone, but she didn't look back. The park felt alive, a sanctuary filled with possibilities and yet still laced with tension. Ahead was the old fountain, a fixture from her childhood, a beacon in the midst of uncertainty. As she approached, memories flooded her, laughter, joy, the simplicity of youth. But now the fountain seemed to morph, its gentle trickle now sounding like a warning call. She called out, her voice trembling slightly. Silence enveloped her, an eerie sense of calm pressing down. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows of the trees, stepping into her line of sight. The person was familiar yet foreign, their posture confident amidst the chaos. "Sarah," the figure said, their voice smooth and reassuring. She demanded, her heart racing as adrenaline surged through her veins. "I'm here to help you," they replied, taking a deliberate step closer, their gaze penetrating. In danger, panic gripped her senses tightly. "Jason is involved in something that puts you at risk," the figure explained, their voice low. "He's been manipulated to keep an eye on you." Sarah's mind reeled. "What do you mean they're using him?" "The forces behind this operation go beyond you and Jason," the figure answered, a note of urgency creeping into their tone. "It's crucial that you understand he can't protect you." Every word felt like a knife cutting deeper into her reality. The memories she held onto so tightly began to unravel, and her heart raced with each revelation. Could Jason truly be part of something nefarious? She pressed, the doubt simmering beneath her surface. "I've seen the way they work. I've been tracking them for a while," they replied, urgency threading through their voice. "You need to follow my lead." The weight of uncertainty pressed down on her shoulders, and she fought against the rising tide of doubt. She exclaimed, frustration seeping through her voice. "Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to our greatest truths," the figure said gently. "You need to choose, Sarah." Suddenly, she heard Jason's footsteps growing closer. "Sarah," his voice was desperate, and the tension of the moment hung thick in the air. She thought, feeling the walls close in again. The figure urged, their tone turning insistent. She felt the storm build inside her, every emotion colliding, battling for dominance. Taking a deep breath, she glanced between the advancing footsteps of Jason and the stranger standing before her. She said, the realization washing over her like a fresh wave. "Then don't," the figure replied with conviction. Jason's voice pushed through the shadows. "You're making a mistake." Her mind raced as the echoes of her childhood flooded back, the trust she shared with Jason now teetering on the edge. Could this stranger really be telling the truth? "I need to know the truth," she said, her voice steadying. The figure insisted, urgency surging in their voice. With a final, determined breath, she looked deep within herself, summoning every ounce of courage. "I choose to know." Jason cried out, but she turned away, ready to take a step toward her own destiny. As she walked toward the figure, the decision resonated within her. She was breaking the bonds that had held her captive for too long. She would not allow fear to keep her chained to uncertainty. "Come with me," the figure said, a sense of relief washing over their face. "I will," she said, newfound strength coursing through her veins. As they turned to leave the park, Jason's voice fell silent behind them. The finality of her decision hung heavy in the air, but she felt a newfound sense of purpose. With each step, the weight of the past lifted, revealing a path toward the unknown, a journey ahead, ripe with uncertainty and potential. Together, with the figure at her side, Sarah stepped forward, ready to embrace the truth, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Freedom was a choice she'd made for herself. No longer would she be imprisoned by doubt or deception. The world stretched out before her, each moment filled with the potential to redefine her destiny. And as she stepped into the light, she felt alive, unafraid, and undeniably herself. "Go." Sarah's voice cut through the noise of the cafe, sharp and urgent, sending a jolt of adrenaline through her veins. She pointed toward the dimly lit back exit, the air thick with tension. Jason froze, uncertainty flashing across his face. "What?" She glanced over her shoulder, feeling the weight of unseen eyes. Panic simmered beneath her skin as she fought the urge to look again. There was no time to explain, something was wrong. With a final push, she turned and dashed toward the exit, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. The familiar ambience of coffee, laughter, and bustling conversation faded behind her as they burst into the alley outside. The sudden quiet compared to the cafe was jarring, like stepping into another world. Jason called after her, his breath hitching as he followed. She gasped, the cool air biting at her skin. watched. His confusion mirrored her own, but there was no time for explanations. I don't know. She felt the tension coil inside her, a thin strand stretching ever tighter. Each moment dragged on, and her instincts screamed for them to run. Suddenly, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. Startled, she pulled it out, her palms sweaty as she saw an unknown number lighting up the screen. Jason urged, anxiety creeping into his voice. With a trembling finger, she swiped to answer. "Sarah, listen to me carefully," a calm voice whispered, sending chills down her spine. "You need to leave." Her breath hitched in her throat. "Just trust me, get to the park, don't let him follow you." Panic surged through her, her mind racing. "Because you don't have a choice," the voice replied, urgency lacing their calm tone. "Time is running out." Jason's eyes widened in fear. "What's going on?" Sarah looked at him, confusion mingling with dread. Jason's voice became frantic. "This is a setup." The tension between them crackled like electricity in the air. She felt as if she were standing at a precipice on the edge of a chasm. On one side was Jason, her friend, her confidant. On the other was this mysterious voice promising safety but cloaked in uncertainty. "Answer me," she said, her heart pounding. Jason pleaded. The doubt gnawed at her, tightening into a knot in her stomach. "This doesn't make sense, Jason." He shot back, his voice rising with urgency. Her mind raced. "Please," he said, the desperation palpable in his voice. For a moment, Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her. The years of their friendship hung in the balance, but deep down, something tugged at her, a primal instinct urging her to protect herself. I have to go," she said, the words tumbling out with determination. Jason's expression shifted from fear to disbelief. The fight surged within her, bolstering her alongside the fear threatening to bury her alive. Without another word, she turned and sprinted down the alley, the sound of her footsteps echoing ominously against the brick walls. The world blurred around her, all she could focus on was escape. Jason shouted, and she heard his footsteps falter behind her, but she couldn't stop. She pushed herself to run faster, her heart pounding against her rib cage. The park loomed ahead, a patch of green nestled between the buildings, a sanctuary amidst the chaos. It was a place of memories, of laughter, and now the unknown awaited her. As she burst through the park entrance, Sarah glanced back one last time. Jason stood at the edge of the alley, his face painted with worry and despair. Their eyes locked for just a moment, and she felt a pang of sorrow, but she couldn't give in to the familiar. In her mind, she could almost hear the voice again, echoing in the recesses of her thoughts. "You need to leave." She raced past the fountain they used to play by as kids and made her way toward the tree line. The shadows from the overhead branches danced ominously as she started to question her decision, feeling the fear creep back in. Jason's voice rang out again, closer this time. Her heart clenched. She could feel the tension building, the uncertainty gripping her mind tighter than ever. She yelled back, trying to maintain her resolve even as it wavered. He was catching up, footfalls pounding behind her as she ran deeper into the park. Just as she spotted an old oak tree, a landmark from her childhood, her phone buzzed urgently again. Hesitating, she pulled it out, her heart leaping. Another message blinked on the screen. "Go to the old fountain." Confusion flooded her. Who was this person? Why would they want to meet her? But the urgency pulsed in her chest, compelling her to trust that maybe this was the path to safety. Jason pleaded, his voice more frantic. Without answering, she turned on her heel and dashed toward the fountain, the familiar sight stirring memories of the carefree days of their youth, overshadowed now by the current chaos. As she approached, she could see a figure standing by the fountain, their back turned to her, waiting silently. The shadows draped the figure in mystery, but something about their stance exuded confidence, drawing her closer. She called out, her voice shaky. The figure turned to face her, their features emerging from the shadows. "You came," they replied, their voice calm and steady. She demanded, suspicion stealing her breath away. "I'm the one who called you," they answered. Fear bubbled over inside her, sensing the gravity of the moment. "I want to help you, Sarah," they said, accurately meeting her gaze. "You need to understand what you're facing." Sarah felt her heart drop. "What do you mean?" "Right now, he's living in a world of deception," the figure explained, gesturing for her to keep her voice down. "He's being used as a pawn in a game far bigger than either of you." She took a step back, tension gripping her again. "Because he's coming," they replied, their voice unwavering. "He's been manipulated, and now you're in danger." Her heart raced as she scanned the area, the shadows growing thicker all around her. She asked, clutching her phone tightly, "Get ready for anything." Every instinct inside her screamed to escape, to follow this mysterious stranger who held the answers she needed. But a part of her hesitated, torn between fear and loyalty. Jason broke through the tree line, breathless. "Sarah," his voice charged with panic. She shot back, looking between them as if they were both guilty of something tremendous. Jason pleaded. "I've always wanted that. This is a trap," she shouted, frustration boiling over as she took a deep breath. "I can't do this anymore." "Sarah, please," Jason yelled, fear lacing his voice, but she felt a fierce determination rise within her. The reality of her situation sunk in. She was standing at a crossroads, and she needed to act. She told the figure. "I'm done living in the dark." "Smart choice," they nodded, their demeanor shifting as they extended a hand toward her. Jason shouted, his voice breaking as he lunged forward, panic etched on his face, but she would not be swayed. "I have to take this chance," she said, her voice unwavering. With one last glance back at Jason, who looked broken and desperate, she stepped forward, taking the stranger's hand. Fear and uncertainty raged within her, but the pulse of resolve coursed through her veins. She asked, her heart racing as she gripped the stranger's hand tightly. "Follow me," they instructed, leading her away from the echoes of her past into the unknown. Together, they navigated the twisting paths through the park, shadows swallowing them whole as they moved closer to the truth. Sarah's heart thumped wildly, a chaotic rhythm filled with anticipation, suspicion, and hope. As they ventured deeper into the darkness, she realized that whatever lay ahead would test her in ways she had never imagined. But she was ready to uncover the truth, ready to reclaim her world, and ready to fight for her freedom, no matter the cost. In that moment, Sarah understood that she was breaking free from the chains of fear. This was her choice, her destiny, and she was excited to embrace it, bathed in the light of possibility. With each step, the past faded behind her, replaced by a future she would forge herself, fiercely and unapologetically. Sarah's voice sliced through the cafe's ambient chatter, urgent and fierce. She pointed toward the back exit, a whirlwind of adrenaline coursing through her. Panic clawed at her throat as she locked eyes with Jason, who stood frozen, his expression a mix of confusion and disbelief. He stammered, glancing nervously around the bustling cafe. The laughter and chatter around them faded as her heart pounded in her ears. She urged, pushing him forward. Fear wrapped around her lungs like a vice, pressing harder with each passing second. Without waiting for him to respond, she dashed toward the back door, her sneakers squeaking against the polished wooden floors. Jason followed, his footsteps echoing her frantic pace. The familiar scent of roasted coffee began to dissipate, replaced by the cool, damp air of the alley behind the cafe. He asked, breathless as they stepped into the shadows. "I don't know," she said, shivering slightly, though the temperature was mild. Watched, his voice trembled, eyes darting nervously. "I don't know." She could feel her pulse racing like a drum. Before they could go any further, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. Startled, she pulled it out, glancing at the screen to see an unknown number lighting up. Fear gripped her, but there was no room for hesitation. "I have to take this," she said, her voice shaky. Jason asked, worry etching deeper lines on his face. She swallowed hard, swiping to answer. The voice on the other end was low, calm, and filled with urgency. "You need to listen carefully. You and Jason are in danger. Get to the park." She gasped, glancing at Jason, who looked increasingly alarmed. "Do not trust Jason." Panic shot through her like a lightning bolt. "What?" "Because it's true." Before she could respond, the line went dead. She stared at her phone, heart racing. A swell of uncertainty overwhelmed her. Jason asked, his voice tight. "They said we need to get to the park, and they said not to trust you," she whispered, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. "What? That's ridiculous." His voice was a mix of desperation and disbelief. She shot back, her heart hammering against her ribs. "You have to believe me, I'm your best friend." Every instinct in her screamed at her to trust Jason, but the unease settled deeper in her gut. Shadows flickered around them, the alley closing in like a cage. "Maybe you don't know everything that's going on," she said, stepping back, weighing her options, feeling her decision hang in the balance. He pleaded, reaching for her arm, but the urgency from the voice lingered in her mind, pushing her toward instinct. She declared. With that, she turned on her heel and sprinted toward the park, determination fueling her steps. Behind her, she could hear Jason calling her name, his voice fading as she dashed deeper into the unknown. She thought, pumping her legs harder. The world blurred around her as adrenaline surged. The park loomed ahead, trees casting long shadows on the ground. Each step echoed with trepidation, her mind racing with questions. As she burst through the entrance, everything felt surreal, like she was caught in a movie scene where danger lurked just beyond her sight. The familiar sight of the old fountain was visible ahead, and as she ran closer, memories flooded back, carefree days spent laughing, playing, and dreaming. But those memories felt tainted now, overshadowed by the enormity of what lay ahead. This time, Jason's voice was more distant. She reached the fountain, breathless. The water bubbled gently, but the world around her felt electric with tension. She stood there, pulse racing, attempting to take stock of her surroundings. Then she spotted a figure lurking near a nearby tree, their figure obscured by shadows. Even though she couldn't see their face, an air of authority surrounded them. As they stepped closer, her heart raced faster. "Sarah," they said, their voice calm yet assertive. She demanded, her voice wavering under the weight of uncertainty. "I'm the one who called you," they answered, taking a step forward, revealing their face-sharp features and tense eyes. She echoed, taking a cautious step back. "How do you know?" "I want to protect you. You don't understand the danger you're in," the figure replied, their eyes focused. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. "What about Jason? He's mixed up in something he can't control. Right now, you're the target." Bile rose in her throat. She felt like she was living in a thriller movie gone wrong. She shot back, trying to cling to her sense of reality. "I know it's hard to believe, but you need to wake up to the truth. Jason might not be safe for you right now," the figure insisted, stepping closer. The weight of her loyalty pressed heavily on her heart. because I've been tracking them. I know their moves, and trust me, they're coming for both of you," they explained, their voice firm. The sound of Jason's footsteps approached, breaking the intensity of the moment. "Sarah." His voice echoed, filled with desperation. Suddenly, Sarah felt like time froze, and she was caught in the eye of a storm. She thought, her heart pounding as she weighed her options. The figure's voice brought her back to the moment. Jason yelled again, his footsteps growing closer. Torn between the two, she felt the walls closing in, uncertainty and fear battling. The figure urged. Jason's voice broke through the shadows. "I have to think," she whispered, nerves bubbling in her gut. Her heart raced as the memories of their friendship flashed in her mind, the shared secrets, laughter, and adventures. But there was another part, buried deep within, the fear that remained unseen. The figure insisted, pressing closer, a sense of urgency in their eyes. She asked herself, sweat trickling down her back. Finally, she raised her chin, resolve solidifying like granite. "I can't stay in the dark any longer," she stated firmly, taking a steadying breath. The figure's eyes brightened, and they took an encouraging step back. Just then, Jason burst into the clearing, panic etched across his face. "Sarah, please don't do this," but she held her ground. She yelled, her heart pounding as she turned to the figure. They said, gesturing for her to stay close. As Sarah took a step forward, Jason reached for her again, desperation flooding his voice. But she turned away, choosing to embrace the unknown path that lay ahead. This was her life, her journey, and she couldn't turn back now. Ready to follow the stranger, she felt the thrill of possibility surge through her veins. "Let's go," she said, determination pounding in her chest. They ventured through the thickening shadows of the park, her heart racing with each step. She could feel the weight of the world behind her, but she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. "Trust yourself," the figure said, echoing the voice of assurance in her mind. And as they moved deeper into the unknown, Sarah felt the chains of her past fall away. No longer bound by fear or manipulation, she was prepared to step into her truth, empowered by the choice she had made. In that moment, she became more than just a girl in a cafe. She was a warrior on a mission, willing to fight for her life, her freedom, and the truth that awaited her. As the darkness enveloped them like a cloak, she embraced the light ahead with fierce determination, ready to forge her own destiny against all odds. "Go." Sarah's voice cut sharply through the bustling noise of the cafe, her wide eyes darting between the door and Jason. Panic surged within her as she pointed toward the back exit. The room, vibrant with the scent of fresh coffee and baked goods, suddenly felt like a trap closing in around her. Jason asked, confusion etched into his features. He took a hesitant step back, glancing at the other patrons absorbed in their conversations, unaware of the tension mounting between them. "I don't know how to explain." Her heart pounded louder than the clinking of utensils and the hum of distant chatter. She was acutely aware that every second counted. Jason shifted nervously but reluctantly nodded, pushing past the tables as they made their way toward the back of the small establishment. With every step, the familiar warmth of the cafe faded, replaced by a cool rush of adrenaline that tightened her chest. They burst through the back door and into the alley, the sudden coolness pressing against Sarah's skin. Jason asked, his breath quickening. "I just got a text." Sarah's voice trembled as she pulled out her phone, her fingers shaking. "Watched by who?" Jason's eyes darted around the dark alley, a hint of fear creeping into his voice. She shouted, feeling a wave of frustration wash over her. Before they could gather their thoughts, her phone buzzed, the vibration jolting her. "It's a call," she muttered, hesitating for just a moment. As the screen lit up with an unknown number, her instincts whispered warnings, but there wasn't time to think. Jason urged, almost frantic. Sarah's voice was shaky, battling against the pounding of her heart. Sarah, the voice on the other end, was calm yet filled with urgency, sending chills down her spine. "Listen closely, you need to leave." A jolt ran through her, sharp and electric. She managed to ask, but doubt seeped into her thoughts, twisting her stomach. It was impossible, wasn't it? "Get to the park, find the old fountain." The voice was unyielding, and as they spoke, fear crept into her heart, mixing with an unsettling sense of truth. She pressed, glancing at Jason, who stood frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. "Because if you don't, you'll regret it," the voice replied, their tone steady, cutting through the mounting chaos around her. "Trust your instincts, Sarah." The call ended abruptly, and the absence of sound felt deafening. Sarah's mind spun with questions as she stared at her phone, the silence enveloping her like cold fog. Jason demanded, the urgency in his voice igniting her fear. "They said to go to the park and that you might be dangerous," she blurted out, her heart racing faster. The truth hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. "What? That's preposterous." His voice was desperate, almost pleading. Jason's brow furrowed, and he stepped closer, trying to bridge the gap that had opened between them. But why would someone say that? The words felt wild as they tumbled from her mouth, each one draped in uncertainty. "Come on, Sarah," Jason said, trying to maintain his composure. "This is ridiculous." The temperature dipped around them as she weighed his words against her intuition. The shadows in the alley seemed to grow longer, twisting into ominous shapes. In that moment, she felt the tension coil tight, each second dragging into eternity. The voice called again, breaking her inner turmoil. The adrenaline surged again, pushing her to act. "I have to go," she said, the decision solidifying within her. "I can't risk it." Jason's face fell, disbelief morphing into desperation. He shouted, his eyes wide. She yelled back, anger boiling over. Without waiting for a response, she turned and sprinted down the alley toward the park, her heart pounding in her chest. Behind her, she could hear Jason's footsteps and frantic shouts fading as she pushed herself to run faster. The park felt like an oasis amid the chaotic world she was leaving behind. Trees loomed overhead, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. She could see the outlines of trails winding through the foliage, but all her focus was drawn to the old fountain ahead, a symbol of simpler, happier times. "Sarah," Jason's voice echoed behind her, tinged with panic. As she entered the park, she glanced back briefly, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions, but she couldn't stop, she had to know the truth. The fountain glimmered in the sunlight, a beautiful contrast to the storm of anxiety brewing inside her. Slowed, panting, taking in the familiar space. The sound of water splashed gently, but that sound felt distant, overwhelmed by the deafening noise of her doubts. She called out, her voice trembling with uncertainty. Suddenly, from the shadows, a figure stepped forward, their features obscured by the bright light behind them. Her heart raced as she recognized the silhouette of someone familiar yet distant. The figure moved into the light, revealing a face that was both startlingly recognizable and foreign. "Sarah," they said, relief washing over their features. She gasped, disbelief flooding her. "I'm here to help you," they replied, their voice steady yet edged with urgency. "Danger from who?" Each question felt sharper than the last, propelled by a mix of fear and curiosity. "Everything that's happening revolves around Jason," they explained, stepping closer. "He's not who you think he is." Her heart sank, reality crashing over her like a wave. She couldn't fathom it. "He's my best friend." The figure interrupted fiercely, their eyes now hard. "They're using him." A dissonance pulled at her heart, the words striking like a thunderbolt. Jason, her friend, the one who had always been there for her. She asked. The very thought sent chills racing down her spine. "They need you for something bigger." The figure's voice softened, empathy lingering beneath the surface. Fear clawed up her throat as another voice echoed through the trees, familiar and insistent. "Sarah," it was Jason. The figure urged, their intensity gripping her. With sudden urgency, the world shifted around her and the gravity of the situation pressed down. Sarah asked, her voice breaking. "Trust your gut," the figure replied firmly, their hand gesturing toward the path behind her, away from the fountain. The weight of Jason's voice ebbed as he closed in, desperation outlining every word. "Don't listen to him." But as the tension stretched thin between Jason's cries and the figure's pleading, Sarah felt the pendulum swing. In that pivotal moment, all she had to do was make a choice. "I can't keep living in fear," she whispered, steeling herself as she took a step back from the fountain. A cold determination ignited within her. The figure said as the last glimmer of sunlight filtered through the trees. Jason shouted, panic rising in his voice. She didn't listen. Just like that, she turned and ran deeper into the park, leaving confusion and doubt in her wake. Branches snapped underfoot and each heartbeat propelled her further into the unknown. The sound of Jason's voice faded as she tore through the underbrush, adrenaline surging through her veins like fire. But as she raced away, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Shadows danced in her peripheral vision, and for a brief moment, fear tried to take hold. Then she heard it, footsteps heavy and deliberate echoing behind her. Panic surged, and she questioned whether she had made the right choice. She urged herself, pushing her legs harder, muscles screaming in protest. The path ahead twisted and turned, and the world felt surreal, like a dream slipping out of grasp. Suddenly, she broke through the trees into an open clearing, the sunlight washing over her like a comforting embrace. But she couldn't stop. She needed to move. The sound of rustling leaves came from behind her, sharper now, drawing closer. She glanced back, heart racing, only to see the figure from the park emerging from the shadows. They shouted, urgency ringing in their voice, but just as she turned to follow, a familiar voice echoed behind her. Jason's voice rang out, filled with a mix of anger and fear. He called again, the sound shattering the moment. In a heartbeat, she was paralyzed, torn between the past and the uncertain future. Jason's face was full of emotion, fear, determination, love, but that love felt laced with something darker now. "You're making a mistake," he shouted, his eyes pleading, and in that moment the weight of her decision pressed down like a vice. She could feel the darkness closing in, time slipping through her fingers like sand. Jason begged, edging closer, but the figure beside her shifted, their expression firm, urging her with their eyes. "Sarah, this is your moment." In an instant, the world around her exploded into chaos. The ground shook beneath her feet, and she felt her heart thundering in her ears. The figure urged, pulling her towards safety. Jason shouted one last time, desperation spilling over. The moment stretched like a rubber band, each heartbeat reverberating with uncertainty as she teetered on the brink. But the decision was hers to make, and this was her life to claim. With a deep breath, Sarah turned away from Jason's desperate pleas and grasped the hand of the figure beside her. They sprinted forward into the unknown, leaving the cliff of her past behind. The landscape shifted around them, but she had chosen her path. The air crackled with tension as they plunged headfirst into the mystery that awaited, a mystery intertwined with secrets, choices, and truths yet untold. And somewhere in the shadows, a darker truth loomed, waiting for its moment to be revealed. The echoes of her choice reverberated like a haunting whisper. Nothing would ever be the same again.